made, that opens up the opportunity for us to create the direct materials, direct labor, and manufacturing overhead budgets. So we're going to start with the direct materials budget, and our required production is going to be filled in from the previous budget. So we'll say equals and select our required production for Q1, that's B28, and then we'll fill this all the way to the right. And now we need to know how many units of raw materials we need per unit of production. And this is going to come from our budgeting assumptions. So we'll say equals, we'll go to the budgeting assumptions, and here we can see for direct materials, we need 15 pounds of materials per unit, which is a case that we produce. The cost is 20 cents per pound. So we'll select this 15, go that to the right, and now we're going to do multiplication. The required units we need times the number of pounds per unit. Go that to the right. And so now we know how much raw material we need for the purpose of production. However, we want to make sure that we don't use up all of our raw materials, and we're going to keep some of that on hand. And so if we go back to our assumptions, we have here that we want to have 10% of the next quarter's production needs sitting in our ending raw materials inventory. So going back to the cash balance, we're going to say equals next quarter's production times budgeting assumption 10% of next quarter, which I named raw materials ending balance next quarter. And so we have that filled in, and we can pull that over to Q3. Once again, we don't have Q1 of the next year, so I'm just going to go ahead and give you that number, which is 22,500. In this case, F38 is a little bit different because this is ending units of raw materials. So instead of doing a sum across this row, we're just going to reference the Q4 ending raw materials inventory balance. Then, if we add these two things together, so we add together the total materials for production plus what we want to have on hand at the end of the quarter, we will get our total raw materials needed. But then we have to subtract out what we started with. So again, our beginning raw materials inventory is going to come from our beginning balance sheet. So we'll say equals, go to our beginning balance sheet, and we have 21,000 pounds of raw materials. And then for the next 3 quarters, it's going to be what we said would be our ending raw materials inventory. So we'll cell reference up to the previous quarter's ending materials. We'll fill that to the right. And then because this one is beginning raw materials, we are going to cell reference our Q1 beginning raw materials. Now that we have this, we can take our units of raw materials needed minus what we have in our beginning raw materials and press enter, and we'll get the units of raw materials that need to be purchased. We can fill this all the way to the right, and so what you should have now is 1,516,500 of raw materials have to be purchased for the year. Then we need to find our cost of raw materials per unit. That was in our budgeting assumption, so we'll say equals, come over here and grab the cost of 20 cents. Now we can fill this all the way to the right, and then do the multiplication of the raw materials times the cost. And we now have the cost of raw materials to be purchased for each quarter as well as the year. In the next piece of this, we're going to calculate the schedule of cash disbursements. And so this is very similar to what we did up here, just this was collection, so we were doing when will we collect our accounts receivable. Now we're going to do the opposite and say when will we pay our bills, when will we pay our accounts payable. If we come to the budgeting assumptions, we have 50% is going to be paid in the quarter that they are purchased, and the other 50% will be paid in the next quarter. So if we come here, excuse me, beginning accounts payable is going to come from our beginning balance sheet. And we have accounts payable of 25,800. So that is what we ended the year with and what we're going to have to pay in Q1. And then besides that, we're going to have to also pay 50% of what we purchased this quarter. So I'm going to lock this in. I'm going to cycle through where the 43 is locked in. So the row's locked in, but the column is not. And then, so we should have B $43 times budgeting assumptions, the percent of purchases paid in the quarter that they're purchased, and hit enter. And then of our Q1 purchases, we need to do the same thing except for the quarter after they were purchased. So we'll say equals, we'll select the prior quarter, cycle through the absolute cell references till just the row is locked in, multiply that by the percent of purchases paid in the quarter after they were purchased, and press enter. And because we locked those in, we can select both the Q1 and Q2 payments for the Q1 purchases, copy those, Command C, come into our Q2, quarter 2 and Q2 purchases and hit Command B. Then again in quarter 3, Command B, and then we will copy D